So I am just kind of newly getting into knitting and crochet, and I've been looking for really simple patterns just to kind of practice and get the hang of some of the stitches. And this bookmark actually is one of the patterns I found on Ravelry.com that I really like making. It's a really short, quick project. It's very simple stitches, so it's easy to get if you're just new and just want something to make so that you can kind of just practice a little bit. But I love to use YouTube videos to kind of teach myself this kind of stuff, and I couldn't find anything making this sort of style of crochet that's not either just a straight stitch or working in the round. And if you're new to crochet like I am, the patterns that you find, they're all just really abbreviated and hard to figure out if you're not really familiar. So I thought I'll just make a video now that I've figured out how to do this, and I've had a few friends ask me how to make it, and I think pretty much anybody can just pick it up and do it if you have an interest in this kind of like thread work. So I'll just go over the really basic stuff that I kind of figured out just in case you're watching and you're new like me and everything was just kind of foreign. So first thing I learned about crocheting is that the size of your hook and the size of your thread have to somewhat coincide. I don't know if there's like a technical way to figure it out, but I notice that the needle, or the hook, excuse me, usually seems just a little bit bigger than the thread, so that's kind of how I've been choosing. And what you'll notice as you're starting to crochet is that the spaces that your hook makes affect how your crochet looks. So I mean, you could use a super thick crochet hook on any kind of thread, but I suspect that all these little spaces between the stitches here would start to look a lot bigger. They would probably get, sorry that's not focusing in on that, but they would probably get a lot larger because the hook is creating a space in there. Anyhow, so just to begin, I learned, you always start with a slip stitch. That's kind of the first standard thing, or a slip knot, sorry. So most people probably know how to make a slip knot. You just pull a piece of thread through a hole, and that right there goes over your crochet hook. But I actually learned kind of a neat way to do it that I thought was just super fast, and when you're already in the habit of working with your hands, it's just an easy wrap trick. So you just take the tail end of your thread here, you wrap it around your fingers once, and then you cross it around a second time. You tuck your hook under that first line and then pull the second one right through, and that just brings a slip knot right onto your hook there, and then you just kind of tighten it up. The second thing that I learned is really important with knitting and crochet is the tension, and that's kind of the tightness that you hold the thread, kind of pulling the thread, and the yarn. I'm a sewer, so I keep saying thread. And also how tight you pull it to your needle, like how tight you pull each stitch. So I notice that's one thing that's really hard to kind of keep consistently sort of a nice tension on your thread. So I tend to try to be a little bit looser. I think most people probably will pull it a little tighter when they're new. So basically what I learned about crochet is when you pull the thread through, you want to be able to easily, the yarn, you want to be able to easily pull it back through that stitch. So the crochet hooks are kind of made in a way where you can see it's kind of tapered here and then gets thicker right about here, and sometimes just pulling your stitch down the needle, down the hook a little bit, will widen it enough that when you go to pull this, it easily goes through. So I'll show you the first stitch you need to know is a chain stitch, and this bookmark, the chain stitch is what actually creates the length right through this middle section here. So you can actually make this any length you want, even though the pattern has a set length to it, but I'll show you how I figured out to just adjust the size. So you want to leave the tail end of your yarn hanging. I want to just loosen this one a little bit, make sure I've got room to work in this stitch here. And then to chain, what you do is you want to be holding this end under the first little loop that you made. Bring your crochet hook under the yarn. You just want to twist it a little bit to kind of grab it there. And then you want to pull it through that loop that you made. Now this first loop of mine was a little tight, but once you get a loop made, it's very easy to adjust the tension. So this pattern in particular says to use 74 chain stitches for this that's called the foundation. But what I've learned is that as long as you do multiples of 6, you can make it any length you want. So I'll do a pretty short one just so I can show you kind of the round of stitches that make up this bookmark. So I loved when I was learning and watching videos, I loved when someone actually recorded the whole process of how they made something, 'cause initially that's all I did was just follow along exactly what they were doing. So I will do that for you guys, and if it's a little bit long, just fast forward through to what you're trying to get to. So that's my first stitch, and there's a lot of counting in this kind of needlework, so I'll count along 1, 2. Again, just pulling it. Sorry if I did that too fast. Just putting the hook under the thread from the left side, around to the right, turn the hook a little bit so it grabs the thread, and then pull it right through that. Oops. Pulling it right through that last loop. Another thing worth mentioning is if you are going to go out and buy yarn, I just used some yarn that I had around at home, but I don't know if you can tell, this yarn has quite a few threads making up the yarn. See how it separates really easily? And that can be kind of a pain too when you're first starting out, because the hook sometimes will kind of go through those threads, or when you're pulling it back through this loop, you can't really see it there, but it'll snag a little bit. So I actually spend quite a lot of time just making sure I have the right amount there. So anyway, I'll get back to my counting here. So I have 1, 2, this will be my third, 3, and I'll go a little bit slow so you can see what I'm doing if you're still just trying to figure it out. 4, 5, 6. So usually about there I want to re-grab my foundation chain here, just here to keep a nice tension on it. And now that's our first multiple of 6. So basically, you'll understand this as I go, but with the pattern here, we're making the stitches right now that make up this edge. So that would basically be 6 stitches, and now however many multiples of 6, that will give you your length. And this is actually, you can probably see by my hands, it's just about an inch long. If you're trying to measure a bookmark or something, you could do about 6 stitches per inch. So I'll keep going. 7, I'm just going to focus in here. 8, 9, make sure it's loose there, yep. 10, 11, oh, you can see I'm still super new. 12, so that's our second set of 6, that'll be our second hole there. I think I'll just do 3 to keep it short. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and that will be 18 right here. So another you can kind of even straighten out your thread if you've got some stitches that are looking a little bigger than others, like there. But overall, it doesn't actually affect the final project very much, so that's nice. One of the things I learned pretty fast, and you'd know it if you did it wrong, but when you go back to stitch back through this foundation chain, you never want to stitch through this first stitch. I mean, obviously, if you did, you'd just push your yarn right back through there. So for this pattern, we start our single crochet in the second. So this is the first. You can kind of recognize the little braided V's. Those are each stitches. So I would say, I'll use the end of my hook here. This V that you can kind of see there is considered the first stitch. It's the stitch that your working yarn is actually going right through still. So we're going to go into the second stitch, and you're just going under the very top of that braid and through. And the way you do a single crochet is after going through that stitch. you just want to do the same thing, hook under from the left, grab the thread from the right, and you want to first just pull it through that stitch that you poked your hook through. Now you'll have two stitches on your hook. Then you want to hook under and pull it now back through both of those stitches. So that's where you want it to be loose enough that you're not fighting with it to get that back through. So we've worked through this stitch that you can see lifted there by the yarn. So the next thing you want to do is count 5 over. So that's 1. Maybe I'll use my hook to make it easier. So this is the stitch we worked in. That's 1. Let's see if I can focus a bit better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I gotta look in real life and see if that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it is. So those 5 stitches there, you want to skip those and go to your next stitch there. Oh, look, I almost forgot. So you skip those and you're going to work in that next stitch, but first you need to chain 5 more. And this is going to create, oh, see, I almost got a thread there. This is going to create the other side of these middle diamonds there. So that's 1 chain, 2 chain. You'll probably notice from the little mistakes I make here that it's really easy to kind of fix when you have like your hook fall out or something. So that's 3, that's 4, and that's 5. So now you've started kind of down here, you've chained 5 to make your way back over here, and now you're going to work in this 6th stitch that we saw before. So again, you're just going to poke your crochet hook right through that first braided stitch there. And you're going to do another single crochet. So I kind of like to pull my work down so that the stitches are really visible and I can hold them and kind of control them. So you're going to hook under your thread again. You're going to pull through just that first stitch. And then you've got the 2 on your hook again. And then you're going to pull through and you're going to grab both of those stitches again. So what you're seeing here is that first loop. This would basically be this part right here. We've made that loop. Now the other thing I like to do, I noticed in the first one I made that there were gaps kind of at this point between all the loops that I made. So I noticed that, see that little gap right there, if I really tighten down my thread right there, that it would kind of minimize that a little bit, take some of that away. So now we're just going to do the same thing all the way across that foundation chain. So we're going to chain, just need to get your attention here. Another way I kind of learned to hold my yarn, same as knitting if you knit, is you kind of lay it over these 3 fingers and then you kind of take your baby and your ring finger and just kind of grab it, and then with your pointer finger you can kind of adjust the tension there. So, and to loosen it at all, you just would pull on this, on your hook, and it'll pull it as tight or as loose as you want it. So I'm going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then going back to that chain, we're going to skip 5 stitches. So let me see if I can show you here. So this stitch that's pulled up is the one that we've been working in, this one right here. So we're going to skip 1, where is that here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to work in this 6th stitch here. And an easy way to check if you're right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is to just count back to the beginning and make sure, and actually stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So then you're going to go through that foundation stitch and you're going to do another single crochet. So you're going to grab the thread, pull it through just the first stitch to slip it in there. Now you've got 2 stitches on your hook and you're going to grab that thread and pull it through both. and that is your single crochet. So we're just doing the 3 this time, so we just make our way back to that beginning chain. So again, we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, you're going to go back to that very first stitch that you can get into. And you're going to do one more single crochet. This one's a little tighter, being right at the start. Let's see there. There we go. So single crochet, 1 back through. This one's a super tight stitch, so let me see if I can get this here. 1 back through there. I really recommend the aluminum crochet hooks. I find they have a nice strength, especially when you really need to work into a stitch like that, which I still have to do quite often. Right, so there you pull it tight, and now you can kind of see how these are making those loops there. Doesn't matter how it looks at this point, these stitches are all going to be stitched around, they'll be covered up. You can see in here how the loops are all covered by other stitches that wrap around and then create this pattern. So the next step, let's just kind of see where your working yarn is here. It's up here. So what you want to do is kind of just continuing to work around this foundation now. So a slip stitch, I won't get too detailed about the different kinds of stitches, but I'll just show you. This pattern says slip stitch into the first loop, which would be this piece right here. So to do a slip stitch into the loop, rather than stitching into another stitch, you just go right through the loop. You want to pull your yarn back through. And then instead of doing a single crochet where we'd only pull it through one here, we actually just pull it through both stitches on our crochet hook there. So that's a slip stitch. The next thing it says to do is to do 3 single crochets, chain 2, and 3 single crochets all into the same loop. So again, a single crochet, we're just going to go in through the loop. You'll kind of get a feel for how to hang on to your work here. I've got it kind of with my thread down here too. But into the loop, and you want to pull it around through, and now single crochet again is first you're going to slip into this first thread to get your stitch together, and then under the thread and through both stitches there. So that is 1 single crochet. Oh, see, I've got another extra thread there that doesn't want to be in there. There we go. So that's your first single crochet. So 1, 2, and your third single crochet into that same loop. Hope you can see what I'm doing okay. Through 1, pull through 2. So that was your third single crochet. So the pattern says 3 single crochet, chain 2. So again, that's just pulling your yarn right through the last stitch on your hook. So there's 2 chained. And then again, you're going to just single crochet 3, and you'll find as you go that really the hook and the yarn sort of create their own placement wrapping around this loop. You can see there now how it's covering those other stitches. And actually, if you kind of lose track of where you are too, you can sort of pull these apart. See that little hole right in there? That's how you can see where the stitches are. Each stitch basically made 2 wraps around the other chain. So that's 3, there's our chain 2, and that's what starts to create the gaps for the design. And now we've done another single crochet, so 2 more single crochets on this loop. Just need to grab my work here properly. So pull that up through the loop, and then single crochet through 1, through 2, and 1 more single crochet in this loop. Gets kind of tight at the end, but you can even space them out along that loop afterwards. It's just thread wrapped around, so it's pretty easy to readjust kind of where your stitches fall afterwards. So nothing special in between loops. We just go back through however many loops you made, doing 3 single crochet, 2 chain, and 3 single crochet in each loop. So that's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and 3 single crochet. And then chain 2, 1, 2, and then chain 3 again in that loop. 1. Starts to look a little messy at times while you're working, but you'll see that afterwards it actually really does come together. So that's 1 single crochet, or excuse me, that's our second single crochet, and this is our last single crochet. Through 1, pull through 2. You'll kind of develop little scripts in your head to count your pattern and where you're at. And actually, after only doing a couple, I actually do notice that you get to a point where you don't have to think quite so hard while you're going. I mean, even being able to talk and tell you what I'm doing while I'm going without completely messing this up is a change from when I first started. So we're in the 3rd loop now. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, make sure, no, I got something stuck in this one. You can tell if you grabbed an extra piece because I can't, like an extra little piece of thread that's not from this loop, because I actually can't loosen my tension here. So usually what I do is just poke right back through wherever I just came from, and I'll be able to find out there's something weird going on with this thread here. So just try to fix it here. It's good that you can see these things happening, so you kind of know what to do if you go through that. So now through both loops, there we go. So now I know that it's loose because I can pull the tension out again. So again, counting down here, I can see that I've done 1 single crochet, 2, oops, sorry, I lost you there, 2 single crochets. So now for the 3rd, three single crochets. So again, chain 2. So you would just do this through as many loops as you decided to make for the length of the bookmark that you wanted. Oops, there's my chain 2. So I'm going to do 3 more single crochets. It's a little harder at the end here when you don't have much work to hang on to. 1, 2. Sorry, I keep looking down at my hands and I'm pulling it out of the video. And 3 single crochets. So then just looking down at my pattern here, well, I'll show you what we've got. So we have these 3 loops done on one side, and then you just want to turn, and right at the end there, it says to just chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then basically just working on the other side, you go back into your pattern. So it's 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3 more single crochets, 1, 2, and 3. So that's one loop fully done. I'll show you what that looks like. Now I know that from, I guess this is my third, or maybe it's my fourth that I've made. I know that the way they look from the first one that I did to this one has really streamlined just as my tension has gotten a little more consistent. So you can see that top of that loop now, and the little spaces that your chain stitches create are going to become like this loop that we stitched through a few times. So you'll see how the pattern progresses. So on to the middle loop now. Again, there's nothing to do in between loops. You just restart your 3 single crochets, chain 2, 3 single crochets. So that's 1. 2, 3, and chain 2, 1, 2. One thing I found is that this real like swiveling of the crochet hook really helps make a smooth, fluid motion while you pull your stitches through. When you grab the loop and then you turn it as you pull it through, and then you turn it again as you let it go, I just find that it hangs on to the stitch a lot better. So there's my, there maybe you can see this a bit better, how you can tell I've done the 3 single crochets. There's a bit of a gap in between the braids. So 1, 2, 3. I did the chain 2, now 3 more single crochets. Now this, because I'm talking and going slow and explaining everything I'm doing, is going to take longer, 1, 2 single crochets, than it would once you, even if you had the pattern in front of you, once you understand what it means. And 3 single crochets. And actually I was surprised to find that even after doing it a couple times, I don't even need to look at the pattern that much. I sort of remember the order of the stitches, and you start to get a feel for what different stitches, what kind of a look they create, so you even kind of start to know what kind of stitch to do just to create the look you want. I guess that's how people end up kind of inventing these patterns. So last loop, single crochet 1, single crochet 2, single crochet 3, chain 2, and 3 more single crochets just to tuck right in there. 1, 2, 3. So now you're at the bottom of the last loop, and I think it says chain 3. Yes, it does. So we chain 3 again just to get around this end and create a loop to work in for our next round. Chain 3. And then this part I haven't completely figured out yet. Maybe if you know a bit more about crocheting you can correct me. But it tells you to join to the first single crochet of the round, which, okay, looking at this, working backwards, there's our chain 2. So that was our 1, 2, 3. That's our first single crochet. So I'm guessing it's just under this stitch here. So to join, I usually just do a slip stitch. So pull through there and then turn a little bit and pull, I almost lost it there, and pull that same loop right through the stitch on my hook there. So pulling that tight, you can see how it's kind of jointed, and I think looks similar to the other side, so I'm happy with that. And you'll see as you go that these stitches can be kind of spread and worked out, and if you want a little more defined kind of points over these chain stitches, you can just really readjust that as you like. Okay, so going on to our next workaround to keep creating the pattern here, it says slip stitch to chain 2 space. So the first chain 2 space, if you remember when we chained 2 up here, that is the space it creates. So you're gonna do a slip stitch again, which is just going through that space, pulling the yarn through the space and then through the thread. So that's a slip stitch, and it seems a little bit weird at this point, I know, but you'll see it come together as you keep going. So then what you want to do, I'm just looking at the pattern here while I go to, sorry. Slip stitch, chain 2 space. Okay, so then you want to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'll move this so that you can actually see what my hands are doing. Chain 3, and then double crochet. So this is a new stitch for us here. To double crochet, you want to first take the yarn, wrap it around the crochet hook, and then you go through the loop or the stitch or whatever you're working on. You grab the yarn and pull it back through, and you should have 3 stitches on your hook there. Let's make sure this is focusing right. So 3 stitches on your hook there. So to double crochet, again, every time that that you first pull the yarn through a stitch or a loop, you want to just join that first stitch. So now you've got 3 still, and now for the double crochet, you pull it back through 2 of the stitches, then you'll have 2 left, then you pull the yarn through the last 2, and that's a double crochet. And what you'll see is that it just creates a much longer kind of, I call them braids, but just a much longer section to your pattern. And that's how you get some of these longer gaps and spaces in the design. So that was a double crochet, and now it says chain 2, and then double crochet. Actually, it's 2 double crochets now. That first chain 3 that we did kind of created our first double crochet. So what they are doing it with the pattern here is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and then 2 double crochets, and that is the stitch. They call it a shell stitch, and from then on they just refer to it as a shell stitch. So there's our first 2 double crochets, then we chain 2 and another 2 double crochets. So again, wrap the thread around through the loop, pull your thread through. You'll have 3 stitches on your hook. The yarn, sorry, I gotta keep catching myself. So pull through once, grab the thread again, pull through twice. Yes, sweetheart. No, honey, Daddy is not going to be home for a little bit yet. And then pull through the last 2. Yeah, got that there. Okay, so that was our first double crochet on that side. So second double crochet, wrap the yarn around through the loop, pull back through that chain 2 space, grab the yarn, slide through 1, grab the yarn, slide through 2, and grab the yarn, slide through 2. So that's our second double crochet, and you can see there that it's making these nice long braids with a space in the middle, and I guess I can see why they call it a shell. It looks a little bit like a shell. So then what you do is just working with these chain 2 spaces that we created in our last round. You just do the same shell, 2 double crochet, 2 chains, and 2 double crochets. So even though it's quite a ways away, the top of the shell really connects them all in the end. So you just want to wrap the yarn around, find your needle, your hook, excuse me, will actually go through those spaces pretty easily. It's interesting how it kind of naturally wants to go there. So pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, that's our first double crochet, wrap the thread around, go back down to the base of that, go through the chain 2 loop, pull the yarn through 1, pull the yarn through 2, yes baby, pull the yarn through 2, yes, do you want to come sit with me?
Yep.
Okay, so that's 2 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2 again for the middle of our shell, and we're going to do 2 more double crochets. There is a way, yeah, I'm just talking to the video where I'm making a little video about how to make this bookmark. You think those are really fun, don't you? There apparently is a way to kind of find the piece of yarn that comes out the middle of your ream, but I haven't been able to find one. If you can, it's nice to not have this just rolling around on you while you try to work, but that's what I have to do. So again, we've done the chain 2, so now we've wrapped the yarn around and we'll do our second 2 double crochets for this loop. Pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around. This is our second double crochet. Pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now working into our next chain 2 space. Double crochet, pull through 1, pull through. Now you'll know if you come here and you find only 2 stitches on your crochet hook that you've forgotten to wrap the yarn around initially. So for double crochet, wrap around the hook and working, where is it here? There it is. Working in that chain 2 space, pull the yarn through, 3 stitches on my hook, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. There's our second double crochet for that space. Chain 2, and 2 more double crochets, and then we'll be on to the other side. Oh, actually, I think we work in the end spaces too. That's what makes the beautiful edging. So double crochet once, double crochet twice, chain, or pull through 2, pull through 2. So just to give you a look where we're at here, it's kind of creating these 3 shell stitches are what give you these diamonds here, and then the shell is at the top. So that's your third chain 2 space, and now we're on the very end here. And so for the last space, it says, hi sweetie, let me just read on my pattern here. To me? I am talking to you. I said, hi sweetheart.
Well, we're talking to me at
Yes. So even having done this a few times, still when I go to read this pattern, it takes a little bit of searching. I mean, now that you kind of see what I'm doing, I'll show you what we're dealing with here. The round that we just did, this is slip stitch to chain 2 space, chain 3, double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in same space.
I won't hold myself.
Anyhow, you can kind of see the way they write it there. Maybe that'll help you now that you've seen it. So it says chain 2, shell in each of the next chain 2 spaces. Okay, so then in the top and bottoms of these chain 3 spaces that we did on the ends, what they want you to do is to do a full shell and then chain 2, or hang on, is that what it is? Shell, oh no, do a full shell and then chain 3 and then another full shell, and that will give you, that would be this shell here and that chain 3, and this shell here is what makes up that end. So the shell again is a double crochet, pull through 1, pull through, oh, almost lost that one there. Crochet is actually very forgiving. I find with knitting, if I drop a stitch, it can take quite a while to figure out how to get it back on, but with crochet, if you lose a stitch, really it just kind of unravels and you'll see very quickly exactly where you were before you started it. You don't really lose much of what you've, any actually of what you've done, so I like it for that. So there's our first 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 more double crochets, 1, Don't smash that on the table, okay, sweetie pie? Thank you, buddy. So that's one shell done. So now you're going to chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, and we're going to do another shell right all in that same stitch. So it will get very tight, but you'll see it all works out, and I can kind of slide it over there and wrap around this section here, or you can slide it after you're all done. Either way seems to work. So another double crochet, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, double crochet, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull 2 through. Now this is the start of our second shell, so we'll chain 2 in the middle there, and then 2 more double crochet. Pull through 1, pull through 2, so I have one that's a little snug there now, and pull through 2, and that was our first of the last 2, so 1 more double crochet, and we're done that end. Pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. So now we're just going back into this next chain 2 space on our loop again, and we're just doing shells across. So you can probably see how this, whoops, I forgot to loop my thread. You can probably see how this does get going fast, especially if you're not having to talk, or once you don't have to look at the pattern. It really does start to become rhythmic, and that's one of the things I was looking forward to about just having a little needle craft to do. And like I said, I mean, I am very, very new at this. Just got my crochet needles in the mail, I think, a week ago, so. Second half of our shell. Oops, I'm pulling out of the picture here. And 1 more double crochet. Now into the next chain 2 space there, double crochet. You can kind of tighten it there if it looks like you have some really loose stitches. Pull through 1. Although so far, especially with this pattern, oh, see there? See how I just had it?
Can you bring me another tape thing?
Oh, the tape? Yeah, you can play with this tape.
Well, I want you to bring another tape for this foot.
No, sweetie, just one at a time. You can use this one right like that. Okay, so double crochet. Oh yeah, you can see how it just kind of unraveled, and it was very obvious right where I was. At least to me it was. Maybe it'll not translate so much over the camera, but. So double crochet, double crochet.
See footy. This was the real head.
I've actually put my little guy to sleep a few times by just sitting there and crocheting in front of him while he rested on me. It's kind of just mesmerizing for him to watch, I think. No, I don't know if it matters, but sorry, I keep going out of the camera angle here. Sometimes when you pull the thread around, it can get kind of caught over another stitch that was already done. I don't know if it'll affect the final design or not, but I tend to try to keep it in its own place so it's not wrapping around a previous double stitch. So this is the last double stitch of this shell, or double crochet I mean, so there's that shell there. Now we are going to double crochet. We're on the very last loop. You can see how quickly crochet just really pulls something together. That's one thing having knitted first, I really noticed that crocheting is just kind of an instant gratification. It really can create a large piece of work very quickly. So another double crochet. Another double crochet, right? Yeah. Through one, through two. That one's not going through smoothly, so I'll try again. Through two, and then we're going to chain two, and then our last two double crochets on this side. So there's our last shell. So now we just have this one final chain 3 section at the end. You okay? You just be gentle with that, okay, sweetheart? Just playing with a tape gun. Okay. So again, in this last stitch, we do the same as the other side. In this last chain 3, we want to do one shell, chain 3, and another shell. So to start that first shell, can I sit down with you, bud?
No.
Oh, thank you. I'm just having trouble keeping my hands in the camera view here. Not really useful. Okay, so we've wrapped the yarn around. Now we'll go into that chain 3 stitch. We'll do one double crochet through one, through two, through two. Second double crochet, I'll just make sure I'm in focus here. Second double crochet, that's our first half of our first shell. And then 2 chains, and then third double crochet of this shell. 1, 2, 3, and our fourth double crochet. 1, 2, 3. So then we chain 3, 1, 2, 3 in between those shells. And I know it seems tight. I kept thinking it wasn't going to fit because I mean it's taking up the whole space there, but somehow it does if you just kind of scooch everything over. Scooch is a very technical knitting crochet term, obviously. Anyways, wrap around last shell. Chain, or not chain, sorry. Pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. Second double crochet, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then chain 2 for the middle of this shell. And then double crochet our last 2. I don't know if you can see, but I just use my